Hello guys, welcome once again to Godfrey Storytime, and I'm having some amazing story for you today. Kindly let's listen to this amazing story that I'm talking about. Kindly let's listen.
My name is Grace Mitchell. I am a school nurse and I live in a small, warm town just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. For most of my life, I believed I had it all figured out. A loving home, a good job, and a happy little girl named Lily who made every single day feel like a gift from God. But if you are just sitting down to watch this story right now, I need you to take a deep breath. What I am about to share with you is something I never in a million years thought would happen inside my own home, right behind my own closed doors. What I discovered changed my life forever. And I believe it might change yours too. Especially if you are a parent, a mother, or a woman who has ever trusted someone completely and later found out you were wrong. Sometimes the people we love the most are hiding things we could never imagine. And sometimes, the only way the truth comes out is through a small camera and a mother's gut feeling. If my story is speaking to your heart right now, please hit that like button and subscribe to Godfred's Storytime, so you never miss a story like this one. And drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from and what time it is right there with you. Knowing that someone in another city, another country, another corner of this world is listening means everything to me. Now let me take you back to where this all began. My daughter Lily was 7 years old and she was the happiest, most bubbly little girl you could ever meet. She had big brown eyes that always seemed to be laughing even before her mouth caught up. She loved drawing butterflies, dancing in the kitchen while I cooked, and telling me every single thing that happened at school every afternoon. She never ran out of words. That little girl could talk from the moment she woke up until the moment she closed her eyes at night. I used to tease her and say, "Lily, when do you find time to breathe between all these sentences?" And she would giggle so hard her whole body would shake. That was my Lily, my sunshine. But something began to change. It was slow at first, like a cloud, moving across the sky so quietly you almost miss it. She started to become quieter. Not all at once, but little by little, day by day. The drawing she used to love stopped. The dancing in the kitchen stopped. She would come home from school and go straight to her room without the usual burst of chatter about her day. At first I told myself it was just growing up. Kids change. Maybe she was tired. Maybe something happened at school. I did not want to be that mother who panicked over nothing. My husband Raymond, who worked as a high school coach, said the same thing. "Grace, she is fine. All kids go through quiet phases. Stop overthinking." And I tried. I really tried to believe him. But one evening during dinner I watched Lily pick at her food with her fork and I noticed something that stopped me cold. She kept glancing at her father. Not the way a little girl looks at her dad with love and comfort. It was different. It was careful, watchful. Like she was checking something, making sure something was okay before she moved. "How was school today, baby?" I asked her gently, leaning forward. She looked at Raymond quickly, then back at her plate. "Fine," she whispered. "And your teacher, Ms. Patterson, is she still doing those fun reading games you told me about?" Lily opened her mouth, seemed to remember something, and then closed it again. Raymond jumped in. "She told me all about it this afternoon. Right, Lily?" He smiled at her and she nodded quickly without a word. I sat there watching this exchange and something in the back of my mind started whispering. That was not normal. Later that night after Lily was in bed, I tried to bring it up. With Raymond. "Don't you think she seems different lately? Quieter?" He sighed the way men sigh when they think you are making a mountain out of nothing. "Grace, she is 7. 7-year-olds have moods. They are not robots. Just let her be a kid." But I kept watching. I paid closer attention to the small things. The way she flinched sometimes when Raymond called her name. The way she would look at the floor when talking to him. The way she had stopped running to hug him when he came home. Something she used to do every single evening without fail. One Saturday afternoon, Raymond went to the store and I sat on the couch with Lily and put her in my lap the way we used to do. I told her we could watch any movie she wanted. She picked an old cartoon and curled into me, and for a while it felt normal. Then during a quiet moment in the movie I gently said, "Lily, you know you can tell mommy anything, right?" She stiffened just slightly. I kept my voice soft and casual, pretending to watch the movie, even if it feels hard to say. Even if someone told you not to. She said nothing. For a long moment. Then in the smallest voice she said, "Mommy, I don't want Daddy to be mad." I kept my whole body still so I would not scare her. "Why would Daddy be mad, sweetheart?" She shook her head and burrowed deeper into my chest. I heard the key in the front door. Raymond was back. Lily sat straight up immediately, and before I could say another word she slid off my lap and ran to her room. I sat on the couch staring at the wall, feeling something cold settle into my chest. Children do not act like that out of nowhere. That night I lay in bed listening to Raymond sleep beside me, and I could not close my eyes. My mind kept replaying everything. The watchful glances. The silence. The way she said she did not want Daddy to be mad. The way she ran when she heard the door. What was she afraid of? What was she trying to tell me? I got up for a glass of water and stood in the dark kitchen staring out the window at the backyard. The swing set Raymond had built for Lily's 5th birthday was just barely visible in the moonlight. She used to spend hours on that swing. She had not touched it in weeks. I went back to bed, but I did not sleep. I decided that the next day I would try again with Lily. I would find a moment when Raymond was out and I would sit with her somewhere she felt safe and I would listen. Really listen this time. The next morning was Sunday. Raymond went out early for a jog and I made Lily's favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like hearts. She came into the kitchen in her pajamas and her eyes lit up for just a moment. The way they used to light up all the time. We sat together at the table and I let her eat without any pressure. I told her silly jokes the way I used to. "What do you call a sleeping dinosaur?" "A dinosaur." She laughed, a real laugh, the first real laugh I had heard from her in what felt like forever. And in that moment of warmth I said softly, "Lily, baby, can you tell Mommy what has been making you sad lately?" The laugh faded. She looked at her pancakes. "Daddy said I should not talk about private things." My stomach dropped. "What kind of private things, sweetheart?" She shook her head quickly. "Cannot say." "Mommy, please do not ask me." I reached across the table and held her small hand. "It is okay, baby. You are safe with Mommy. No matter what." She looked up at me and I saw it clearly for the first time. It was not just sadness in her eyes. It was fear. Before she could say another word we heard Raymond's footsteps on the front porch. Lily pulled her hand away from mine and picked up her fork again. She was in full quiet mode by the time he walked through the door. "Good morning," he said, grabbing a glass of water. "How are my girls?" "Fine," I replied, watching Lily stare at her plate. That exchange confirmed everything my gut had been trying to tell me. Something was happening between Raymond and my daughter. Something that she was being told to keep secret. And whatever it was scaring her. I spent that entire day feeling sick to my stomach. I needed to know the truth. I needed proof, not assumptions. That afternoon, while Raymond took a nap, I drove to an electronics shop on the other side of town. I deliberately chose one far from our neighborhood so Raymond would not see me. A young woman at the counter helped me find a small wireless camera, one that connected to an app on my phone and could record and send alerts if there was motion in the night. "For what room?" she asked me professionally. "Child's bedroom," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked at me for just a second and then nodded without another word. She showed me the setup and I paid with cash. On the drive home I gripped the steering wheel and prayed I was wrong. I prayed that what I would see on that camera would be nothing. Raymond checking the window. Raymond looking for something he had forgotten. Nothing more than a harmless habit that could be easily explained. But my heart already knew. That night I waited until Raymond and Lily were both settled. I told Raymond I needed to tuck Lily in by myself because she seemed emotional. He shrugged and turned on the television. I sat with Lily until she was nearly asleep. I stroked her hair and sang the little song I used to sing when she was a baby. And when I was sure she was calm, I stood up and carefully placed the camera inside the stuffed elephant on her bookshelf, angled toward the room. I tested the feed on my phone in the hallway. It was clear and showed a perfect view of the bed, the door, and the whole room. Then I went back to the bedroom, lay down beside Raymond, and waited. Raymond fell asleep quickly. I lay completely still, watching the camera feed on my phone under the blanket with the brightness turned all the way down. An hour passed. Then another. I was starting to think I had imagined everything, that perhaps I really was just an anxious, overthinking mother. And then at 20 minutes past 11, Raymond stirred. He rolled over carefully and looked at me. I steadied my breathing and kept my eyes closed, pretending to be deep in sleep. He waited a few seconds, and he quietly slipped out of bed. I held my breath. On the small screen I watched the feed from Lily's room. A few seconds later the door opened. Raymond came in and softly closed it behind him. He walked to Lily's bed and sat on the edge. Lily shifted under her blanket. And then I heard something that made my blood run cold. "Daddy has something for us to do," he said in a low whisper. My hand started shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I watched Lily pull the blanket up over her face. "Please, Daddy." "I'm tired," she whispered. "You know we have to do this," he replied. "It is our special time. You do not want to upset Daddy, do you?" My heart was hammering so hard I thought it would wake up the whole house. I was frozen. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run into that room. But another part of me knew I had to see. I had to have the full evidence of what was happening. So I watched. And what I saw next destroyed me completely. Raymond reached under the bed and pulled out a small box I had never seen before. He opened it and began taking things out. Notebook. Some kind of charts with drawings. He made Lily sit up and he began pointing at the drawings, quizzing her, and when she got things wrong or looked away or said she was tired, he would grab her wrist. Not hard enough to leave a bruise necessarily, but hard enough to make her go still. Hard enough to make her obey out of fear. She was 7 years old and she was being controlled in her own bed in her own room in the middle of the night. And I had known nothing about it. I'm going to be honest with you. The word I would use most for what I saw is not violence in the way most people picture it. It was control. It was a father using fear and nighttime secrecy and a child's need to please her parent to manipulate her in ways she was far too young to carry. He was telling her she was stupid when she got things wrong. He was threatening her. "If you tell your mother about this, she will be so disappointed in you. She will think you are bad. I will make sure she knows how bad you have been." This had been going on every night. Every night while I slept in the next room trusting that my child was safe. I left the bed and moved into the hallway on shaking legs. And I opened that door. Raymond looked up at me and for 1 second neither of us spoke. "What are you doing in here?" I asked. My voice was calm. The kind of calm that comes when your body is so deep in shock it has nothing left. He stood up slowly. "Grace, it is not what it looks like. Get out of this room," I said quietly. "Raymond, get out now." He moved toward me. I stepped back so he could pass and then I closed the door between us with him in the hall. I knelt beside Lily who was shaking under the blanket. "Baby, Mommy is here. You are safe. I am right here." She burst into tears immediately, the kind of deep crying children do when they have been holding it for far too long. I held her and rocked her and I said nothing else for a long time. Just let her cry and held her as tight as I could. Raymond knocked softly on the door. "Grace, let me explain." I ignored him. Lily cried until she went limp in my arms from exhaustion. I laid her down, covered her up, and sat beside her bed until I was sure she was truly asleep. Then I went into the hallway and Raymond was sitting against the wall. He looked up at me with an expression I could not name. "Grace, it was educational. I was helping her. I need her to be smarter than the other kids. No one will love a girl who is not smart." Those words landed on me like bricks. He had been telling our daughter that. He had been going into her room every night telling her she was not smart enough, not good enough, threatening her with the loss of my love if she did not comply with his secret nighttime lessons, drilling fear into her heart every single night under the cover of darkness. I looked at my husband of 9 years standing in that hallway and I felt something in me shift permanently. "I want you to sleep in the guest room tonight," I said. "We will talk tomorrow." He protested. He said I was being dramatic. He said he was only trying to help her. He said I had no idea what I was talking about. I went into our bedroom, locked the door, and sat on the floor with my back against the bed, and I cried until there was nothing left. Then I picked up my phone and I backed up every single second of that camera footage to cloud storage and to a flash drive I kept in my work bag. I was not going to lose this. Whatever came next, I was going to be ready. I did not sleep the rest of that night. I lay in bed listening to the house breathe around me, and I thought about all the signs I had missed. Or not missed. Just not understood. Lily stopping her dancing. Lily going quiet. Lily looking at her father before she dared to speak. Lily saying she did not want Daddy to be mad. All of it had been her trying to tell me in the only language a frightened 7-year-old has. And I had been right there. Every single day. And somehow I had still not known. Monday morning came and I got Lily ready for school. She was still fragile, still puffy from crying, but she held my hand all the way to the car without letting go. At school I pulled her teacher Ms. Patterson aside and told her briefly that Lily might have a hard day emotionally, that things at home had been stressful. Ms. Patterson looked at me carefully. "Mrs. Mitchell, I have been meaning to call you. Some things in Lily's drawings this past month have concerned me. I have been documenting them in case I needed to reach out. Can we schedule a meeting?" I said yes immediately. Then I drove straight from the school to my sister Sandra's house. Sandra opened the door, one look at my face, and pulled me inside without a word. I sat at her kitchen table and I told her everything. By the time I finished, she had both her hands pressed over her mouth and tears were running silently down her face. "Grace," she said finally, "you cannot go back to that house with him tonight. Not until you know Lily is fully safe. You need a lawyer. Today." She called in a favor from a friend who knew a family attorney, a woman named Patricia Hayes who specialized in child protection cases. By noon I was sitting across from Patricia in her office with my phone and the flash drive on the table between us. She watched the recordings quietly. When they finished, she sat back and looked at me. "Mrs. Mitchell, what you have here is a significant documentation of psychological abuse and coercive control against a minor. This is serious. This is enough to go to the authorities and to begin emergency custody proceedings. I want to be honest with you." My voice surprised me with how steady it came out. "I want him out of that house. I do not want my daughter to ever be alone with him again." Patricia nodded. "Then we start today." She helped me draft a statement for the police and we discussed the order of steps. First a report to Child Protective Services. Then an emergency protective order. Then a petition for immediate full custody. While I was in that office, Raymond called me 4 times. I watched the phone buzz and did not answer once. Sandra picked Lily up from school that afternoon and took her to her house. I asked her not to tell Lily anything yet, just to have a fun afternoon and to please tell Lily that Mommy was coming later. When I finally arrived at Sandra's, I found Lily at the kitchen table doing a puzzle with my sister's youngest daughter. For a moment she looked almost like herself. When she saw me, she climbed down from the chair and walked over and wrapped both arms around my waist and just stood there. She did not say anything. I held the top of her head and breathed in the smell of her hair. That night Lily and I slept at Sandra's house. I lay beside her in the small guest bed and she fell asleep holding my hand. Before her eyes closed she asked, "Mommy, are we going home tomorrow?" I smoothed her hair back. "We're going to stay with Auntie for a little while, baby. Is that okay?" She thought about it. She nodded. Then she said quietly, "I do not have to do lessons at night there, right?" And I had to press my face into the pillow so she would not see me cry. "No, baby. Never again." She let out a long breath and fell asleep within minutes, as if something in her whole body finally unclenched and let go. The next morning I went back to the house while Raymond was at work. I packed everything Lily and I would need for the next several weeks. Clothes, her school things, her stuffed animals, her drawings, her toothbrush with a little butterfly on it. I took the documents from the house file, the birth certificates, the insurance cards, everything important. I was calm and focused in a way I did not fully understand at the time. I think sometimes when you know you are doing the right thing, your body stops hesitating. I also looked through the house carefully. In Raymond's closet on the top shelf behind some boxes I found a thick binder. Inside were printed grids, charts, and notes. Pages and pages of academic drills he had designed for Lily. Written at the top of the first page in his handwriting were the words, Lily's Private Improvement Plan. Nighttime review sessions. I photographed every single page. I took the whole binder. Then I left the house, locked the door, and drove away. I have not slept there since. At the police station that afternoon, I was met by a detective named Sergeant Williams who sat with me for over an hour going through the footage and my written statement. She was calm and thorough, and she did not rush me once. She confirmed they would open a formal case and begin their own investigation. She also connected me to the Department of Family and Children's Services, who assigned a caseworker to Lily. The DFCS caseworker, a soft-spoken woman named Mrs. Thorpe, came to Sandra's house the following day to speak with Lily. I was not in the room for their conversation. I sat in the kitchen with Sandra, drinking tea I could not taste, and waited. When Mrs. Thorpe came out, she sat across from me at the table. She said, "Lily, talk to me. She is a brave little girl, Mrs. Mitchell." She described what she called her night lessons, and she described the fear she felt every night waiting for them. She described how her daddy told her that if she ever told you, you would stop loving her. I covered my face with my hands. "I know it is hard to hear," Mrs. Thorpe said gently. "But her being able to name what happened and to say it clearly, that is actually a sign of how much support she has felt from you recently. She knows you are in her corner now." I went to Lily after. I found her sitting on Sandra's bed looking at a picture book. I sat beside her, and for a moment we just looked at the pictures together without speaking. Then I turned to her. "Lily, I want you to know something. No matter what anyone ever tells you, Mommy's love for you has never been in danger. There is nothing you could do, nothing anyone could say, nothing in this whole world that would ever make me stop loving you." She looked at me with those big brown eyes. "I know," she said. "Think I always knew. But Daddy said it enough times that I started to forget. That sentence has stayed with me every single day since. Think I always knew. But he said it enough times that I started to forget. That is what prolonged psychological control does to a child. Does not break them all at once. It just repeats the lie until the truth starts to feel uncertain." The days that followed were full of appointments and paperwork and phone calls. My lawyer Patricia filed the emergency petition, and the court granted a temporary protective order within 48 hours. Raymond was prohibited from contacting me or Lily, and was required to vacate the marital home pending the custody hearing. He did not go quietly. He called my phone so many times I had to block his number. He called Sandra. He called my mother. He even showed up at my mother's house saying I had lost my mind, that I had fabricated everything, that I was trying to destroy him. My mother called me after. "Grace, he is saying terrible things. He is very convincing." "I know," I told her. "But I have the recordings, Mom." A 7-year-old child does not lie about being afraid to go to sleep in her own room. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "What do you need from me?" That was the moment I knew I was not alone. Patricia warned me that Raymond would try to build a counter-narrative. He had already begun reaching out to people who knew us, neighbors, people from his school, parents from Lily's class, collecting character witnesses who would say what a wonderful, involved father he was. And he was not wrong that people thought that. Raymond had always been the fun dad, the coach, the one who showed up to every school event with a huge smile and a clever joke. No one saw what happened behind closed doors at 11 o'clock at night. No one except Lily. And she had been told that if she spoke up, she would lose the one thing she loved most. Me. I had a meeting with Dr. Angela Foster, the child psychologist who was assigned to Lily's case through the court. She was a warm woman with natural hair and a gentle way of asking questions that made children open up without realizing it. After her first few sessions with Lily, she asked to speak with me privately. "Grace, Lily has been living under significant emotional pressure for at least 8 months, possibly closer to a year. The pattern you have described and that she has confirmed to me is consistent with what we call coercive parenting or psychological abuse. It involves using fear, shame, secrecy, and threats to the child's attachment relationships to control their behavior. In Lily's case, the threat that you would stop loving her if she disobeyed or spoke out was particularly damaging because attachment to you is her primary sense of safety. I sat with that. Months. While I was sleeping in the next room. Feeding her breakfast, brushing her hair, thinking we were okay. For 8 months my daughter had been carrying this alone in the dark. Dr. Foster continued. The encouraging thing is that Lily's bond with you is intact and strong. She trusted you enough to start dropping hints even when she could not yet say the full truth. The fact that you noticed and acted quickly is enormously important to her recovery. I would recommend we begin weekly sessions, and I will prepare a report for the court regarding her emotional state and what custody arrangement would best support her healing. I asked the question I had been afraid to ask all week. Will she be okay? Dr. Foster looked at me steadily. With the right support, children this age are remarkably resilient. The most important thing is consistent safety and a secure attachment to you. And you are already providing both. The custody hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks after the initial filing. Those 6 weeks were some of the hardest of my life. Raymond's lawyer was aggressive. They painted me as a paranoid mother who had invaded her family's privacy with hidden cameras, and blown a normal father's dedication to his daughter's education completely out of proportion. They submitted statements from 12 character witnesses including other coaches, parents, and even a pastor from a church we had attended once or twice. They argued that the so-called night lessons were an unconventional but not abusive form of parental involvement in a child's education. I sat in that courtroom and I listened and I held myself together because I knew what the recordings showed. I knew what my daughter had said. I knew what was in that binder. And I knew what Dr. Foster's clinical report said. Patricia presented our case methodically. The footage. The DFCS report. Dr. Foster's evaluation. The testimony from Lily's teacher, Ms. Patterson, who had kept detailed records of the concerning drawings. The withdrawal, the drop in engagement. And then Lily spoke. Not in open court. In a protected session with a court-appointed advocate, the judge, and the lawyers present through a one-way mirror. I waited outside that room for 45 minutes. When they came out, Lily found me and walked straight into my arms without looking at Raymond, who was seated across the hall. He called her name softly. She did not turn around. I felt her hands grip the back of my blouse. I kept my arms around her and looked straight ahead. The judge's decision came the following week. Raymond was denied custody and was granted limited supervised visitation only, pending completion of a court-ordered psychological evaluation and a program for coercive and controlling behavior. I had primary custody of Lily effective immediately. I sat in Patricia's office when I got the news and I did not have words for a long time. I just sat there while she explained the details, and eventually I realized my face was wet. I had not felt myself start to cry. That evening I took Lily to her favorite restaurant, a little place that made the softest jollof rice and fried plantain in the whole city. She sat across from me and looked at the menu seriously the way she always had, with her little finger tracing the words even though she already knew what she wanted. Then she looked up at me. "Mommy, is Daddy going to come to our new house?" "No, baby. Our new home is just ours." She looked back at the menu. Her finger kept moving along the words. Then quietly she said, "Good." I ordered for both of us, and when the food came she ate everything on her plate for the first time in months. That was the moment I allowed myself to believe we were going to be all right. The weeks after the court decision were weeks of rebuilding. We moved into a small apartment not far from Sandra's neighborhood. I painted Lily's room the pale yellow she chose, and we put butterfly stickers on the wall above her bed. She picked out her own curtains. On the first night in our new room she climbed into bed and looked at the ceiling and said, "I like it here, Mommy. Feels safe." I tucked her in and sat beside her until she was asleep, and I thanked God quietly in my heart for every single thing that had led me to that camera. Lily's sessions with Dr. Foster continued twice a week. The doctor told me the progress was meaningful, but that Lily would need time to untangle some of the beliefs Raymond had embedded, particularly the belief that her value was tied to her intelligence and that love was conditional on performance. "That breaks my heart," I told her during one of our parent sessions. "It should," Dr. Foster said gently, "because it is a serious injury to a child's sense of self. But it is also something that can heal. especially with a mother who tells her every day that she is loved simply for being herself. And I did. Every single morning without fail I told Lily I loved her for no reason at all. Not because she was smart. Not because she did well on a test. Not because she made me proud. Just because she was Lily. Just because she existed. Just because she was mine. She started to ask for it after a while. Mommy, say it the way you say it. And I would say it. I love you, Lily. Not for anything you did. Just because you are you. And she would smile and run off to school, and for a moment everything in the world felt fixable. Raymond completed his court-ordered evaluation. The psychologist's report noted significant traits consistent with a controlling personality and a tendency to rationalize harmful behavior through a framework of superior parenting intentions. He was ordered to complete a 12-week intervention program before any request for increased visitation could be considered. His lawyer fought it. The judge upheld it. One evening Sandra came over for dinner, and we sat on the little balcony after Lily was in bed. Sandra looked out at the city lights and said, "Grace, do you still love him?" I thought about it honestly. "I don't know," I said. "I think I love the man I thought he was. But that man was never completely real. There was always this other version of him that I only saw in pieces and told myself was nothing. She was quiet. You saved her, you know. No. But I should not have had to save her. He should never have put her in danger." We sat with that for a while. Then Sandra said, "What are you going to do next?" And for the first time in months I smiled because I actually had an answer. I had been speaking with the school district about a new initiative. After everything that happened, I could not stop thinking about how many children were sitting in classrooms carrying secret fears that their teachers could see only in pieces. The withdrawn child. The one whose drawings darkened. The one who used to talk and stopped. I wanted to create a simple training program for school nurses, something that bridged the gap between what we observe medically and what teachers observe behaviorally, so we could communicate better and catch the signs sooner. The district wellness coordinator liked the idea. She connected me with a child protection advocacy group in Atlanta that had resources and wanted to partner with schools. By the end of the month I had a meeting scheduled and a rough outline of the program on paper. Working on it gave me something to pour my energy into that was not grief or anger or the endless legal paperwork. It gave me a reason to believe that what happened to Lily could mean something beyond our own family. 3 months after the court hearing I received a call from Raymond's sister Diane. A woman I had always liked but rarely spoken to during the marriage. She said she had heard what happened and that she was sorry. She said it had not entirely surprised her, that Raymond had always needed to be the most important person in any room, had always needed to control the narrative, had always had a difficult relationship with any perceived inadequacy in others. She said as children Raymond had been hard on her too. In smaller ways, but she recognized the pattern. I thanked her for calling. Then I cried for a long time after I hung up. Not because it made me more angry, but because it made him more human. And somehow that was harder. Understanding that people who cause harm are often themselves broken does not make what they did acceptable. But it does make it more complete, more true. And the truth, all of it, is the only thing that actually helps you heal. Lily had a school performance in the spring. Her class performed a short play about seasons changing and she had a speaking part. She wore a little yellow dress and her hair was in 2 puffs. And she stood up on that small stage and she delivered her lines in a clear, steady voice without looking at the floor once. I was in the 3rd row and I had to work very hard not to fall completely apart in front of the other parents. When she came off stage and found me, she was grinning so wide I could see every single tooth. "Mommy, did you see me? Did you see me? Saw you, baby. You were perfect." And she ran back to her class and I sat there in that gym chair and felt something in my chest, not all the way. The program I developed with the district launched in the fall. We called it See the Whole Child. It trained school nurses and counselors to use a shared checklist for flagging behavioral and physical changes in students, and to communicate directly across departments without waiting for a crisis. We piloted it in 4 schools. In the first semester alone, 2 cases were flagged and investigated that might otherwise have gone unnoticed for months longer. One of those children was placed with a protective relative after a DFCS investigation confirmed what the school team had documented. When I found out, I sat at my desk at work and just breathed for a while. That child. That one child whose situation changed because of a checklist we built. That made everything worth it. Raymond eventually completed the 12-week program. His lawyer filed for increased visitation. The judge reviewed the program completion documentation and Dr. Foster's updated report on Lily and determined that visitation could increase to bi-weekly supervised sessions at a neutral family center, provided Lily herself was comfortable. Dr. Foster asked Lily about it in a session. Lily said she did not want to see him yet, that she was not ready. Dr. Foster brought that to the court. The judge ruled that no forced contact would occur and that readiness would be assessed at 6-month intervals by the therapeutic team. Raymond's lawyer called it unreasonable. Patricia argued that forcing a child who had been psychologically controlled to have contact with the person who controlled her was not in the child's best interest under any standard. The judge agreed. I will not pretend that the legal back and forth did not cost me money, cost me sleep. There were evenings I sat at my kitchen table after Lily went to bed and stared at the stack of documents and felt completely underwater. But every morning I got up because she needed me to. And every morning she would come into the kitchen in her pajamas and say, "Morning, Mommy, what's for breakfast?" And I would tell her and she would consider it very seriously and then give me her verdict. And that was enough. That was always enough. My mother came to stay with us for a month that autumn. She slept in the living room on the pull-out sofa, and every evening she cooked dinner, and every night she sat with me after Lily was in bed, and we talked in the quiet way mothers and daughters talk when there is nothing left to perform. One night she said, "I did not fully believe you at first. When Raymond came to me." "No." I held her hand. "You believe me now?" She nodded. "I have always known my daughter. I should have trusted that knowing from the first call." I told her it was okay. And I meant it. 'Cause I understood it. Raymond was believable. Raymond had spent years building a version of himself that the world saw and trusted. The version that showed up at every school event, coached the boys with patience and humor, brought my mother flowers on her birthday. That version was real too. That is what makes it so hard. Abusers are not monsters from a story. They are people. People we know. People we sit beside at dinner. People whose good parts we loved genuinely and truly. And that is exactly why children do not get believed when they try to tell. Because the person they are describing does not match the person everyone else sees. So the child learns to stop trying. Lily stopped trying. For 8 months she stopped trying and carried it alone until the fear and the weight of it started leaking out through her silence and her drawings and the way her shoulders bent when her father entered the room. I think about other children every day. Children who are still carrying it. Children whose mothers have not yet installed a camera. Children whose teachers have documented the drawings but have not yet connected the dots. Children who have been told so many times that no one will believe them that they have stopped testing to see if it is true. That is why I kept telling our story. Not for sympathy. Not to destroy Raymond publicly. But because silence is what these situations survive in, and I was not willing to give it any more of ours. Lily is 8 now. She is in 2nd grade and her teacher told me at our last conference that she is one of the most expressive and engaged students in the class. She talks constantly. Her teacher said it with a small laugh like it was almost too much. And I laughed too and thought to myself, you have no idea how long I prayed to hear that. She has started dancing in the kitchen again. Last Tuesday she put on a song and danced from the stove to the refrigerator while I tried to stir soup, and she crashed into me and we both nearly fell and we laughed so hard the neighbors probably heard us. I pressed my face into her hair and held her there a second longer than the joke required, and she let me. She always lets me. Because we are close in the way that only people who have been through something together and survived it can be close. The nightmares that used to wake her up screaming have become rare. Dr. Foster says we can consider moving to monthly sessions by the new year if things continue at this pace. Lily is healing. She is growing. She is loud and curious and full of opinions about everything. From which flavor of ice cream is scientifically the best to why certain clouds look like animals and others look like nothing at all. She is becoming herself. The self she would have been all along if no one had spent a year in the night telling her she was not enough. A few months ago, I was asked to speak at a community event organized by a child protection nonprofit. I stood in front of maybe 80 people in a church hall and I told our story. I did not leave out the hard parts. I did not soften Raymond into something easier to understand. I just told what happened. Afterward, a woman came up to me. She had been crying. She said, "I have been watching my grandson for 3 months and something is wrong. I can feel it, but I do not know how to prove it. I do not want to be wrong." I looked at her and I said, "The feeling you have is not nothing. Feelings like that come from somewhere. Take that feeling seriously. Document what you see. Talk to his teacher. And trust yourself." She squeezed my hand and did not say anything else. But I saw something shift in her face. That is what I carry with me. The knowledge that one story told out loud can reach somebody who needs it. Can give somebody permission to trust their own instincts instead of dismissing them. Can remind somebody that their child's fear is real even when the person causing it looks perfectly fine from the outside. And if that is what our story does, then none of it was wasted. Not the sleepless nights. Not the legal bills. Not the grief. Not a single hard thing. It was not wasted. To every parent watching me right now, I want to say this simply and plainly. If your child has become quieter and you cannot explain why, pay attention. If your child used to run to someone and now goes still when that person enters the room, pay attention. If your child is afraid to tell you something because they think it will cost them your love, that fear did not come from nowhere. Someone put it there. And your child is waiting, even if they have stopped hoping, to find out if they were right. Be the proof that they were wrong. Be the parent who believes them. Be the person who acts. You do not need perfect evidence to start asking questions. You do not need to be certain before you begin protecting. You are allowed to be wrong and find out everything is fine. That is infinitely better than being afraid to ask and finding out years later that it was not. The camera I put in Lily's room was not an act of suspicion of my daughter. It was an act of love. It was me saying, "I see that something is hurting you and I am going to find out what it is and I am going to stop it." That is what mothers do. That is what parents do when they are paying attention. And I was paying attention. Even when I doubted myself. Even when Raymond told me I was being dramatic. Even when my own mother was uncertain. My gut never stopped telling me. And I am so grateful I listened. Because Lily is 8 years old and she dances in the kitchen again. And she has opinions about ice cream and clouds. And last week she drew me a picture of the two of us standing in front of our little yellow apartment with the butterfly curtains, and she wrote at the bottom in her big round handwriting, "Me and Mommy. Our happy home." I have it on the refrigerator right now. That picture is everything. That picture is why I installed the camera. That picture is why I went to the police station and the lawyer and the courtroom and the advocacy events and all the hard places this past year has required me to go. So I could end up with a picture on a refrigerator that says our happy home. And a little girl who knows, who truly knows in her bones, that love does not have conditions. That she does not have to be smart enough or quiet enough or perform well enough at 11 o'clock at night to deserve her mother's heart. She has it. She has always had it. She will have it every morning she wakes up for the rest of her life without having to earn a single inch of it. To Lily, if you ever watch this one day when you are grown, I want you to know that you were never the problem. Not for one single second of one single night were you ever the problem. You were just a little girl in a world that was asking too much of you too quietly for anyone to easily hear. Heard you, baby. Even when you could not find the words. Heard you. And I will always hear you. To everyone watching this story on Godfred's Storytime today, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sitting with our story and treating it with your attention and your hearts. Stories like this are not easy to tell and they are not easy to hear. But they matter. They matter because children are counting on the adults around them to be paying attention. And sometimes the adults need to hear a story like this one before they start to look more closely at their own child, their own grandchild, the quiet kid next door. So please pay attention. Trust your instincts. Believe children. Act before you are certain rather than waiting until you cannot doubt anymore. And never let anyone, no matter how convincing, make you feel like you are being dramatic for noticing that your child is afraid. This is not dramatic. This is the most important thing you will ever do. One final thing before I go. This story is hard. But it does not end in darkness. It ends in a yellow room with butterfly curtains and a little girl who sleeps through the whole night now. It ends in a school where a nurse and a teacher compare notes on a shared checklist and flag a child who needed someone to see them. It ends in a church hall where a grandmother walks up to a stranger after a talk and decides to trust her own instincts about her grandson. Darkness loses. It loses every time someone decides to pay attention instead of looking away. So look, just keep looking. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like so that Godfred's Storytime knows someone out there was listening. Subscribe right now so you do not miss the next story told with all the honesty and love I have. Tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from and what time of day it is there. It warms me deeply to know which city and which time zone is keeping me company tonight. If you have been through something like this, if you have been the parent who had to make a hard choice to protect your child, share your story in the comments. You might be the voice that someone else needed to hear today. A big warm hug from Godfred's Storytime to every parent, grandparent, teacher, nurse, neighbor, and stranger who takes their responsibility to children seriously. You are doing something important even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Did this story move you? Let me know in the comments and tell me which city you are watching from. On the screen right now you can find 2 more stories from Godfred's Storytime that I think you will love. Do not forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next story. With all my love and respect.